You know, this summer has really got me thinking that sometimes you have to take a break from your garden. Guten gardening, everybody! All right, first of all, I am not suggesting that you take a break from gardening in the sense of you stop gardening. I'm not saying that at all. But sometimes what I've found is that you can become so tied to your garden that during that entire summer season, it becomes difficult to take any kind of break and maybe even spend any time with your family outside of that garden space. And I think that's important to understand because gardening should be, and we call it a garden therapy a lot, but it should be something that is an important and positive impact on your overall existence. And gardening is an enjoyable experience. The idea of growing your own food is phenomenal. But you never want something like this to take away from your family. You never want something like this to take away from opportunities that you may have out there to enjoy yourselves, because those times are also really important. And so this season, we took our own advice, and I would say for the first time in about 3 years, we took multiple vacations. Now, there's a part of this that's probably a little bit anxiety inducing because the first time we went away, it was for 2 weeks, and we were dependent on the rainfall to really take care of our garden. One way to avoid that bit of anxiety is if you have a neighbor or someone who you could ask to potentially help to water your garden while you're gone. That's helpful. The second time we went away, and we actually just got back last week, we did a 10-day trip on the West Coast. A 10-day trip that, one, I'm confident my family will always remember, and two, that was an incredible adventure. We saw many new things, and we did something that I don't want to call it a once-in-a-lifetime trip because I'd like to be able to do it again, but something that is going to stand out to us in terms of what we were able to do and what we were able to see. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of our trip while I'm harvesting here in the garden. And of course, because we were gone for that period of time, and it's, you know, the end of August, now September, there's a lot of stuff that's ready to be harvested. So our daily harvests took a hit, and that means we're gonna have to do a little bit of a bigger harvest today, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and get started with our harvest. And I'm gonna show you, as we go through this harvest, some of the things that we did on our trip. And I'm gonna start our harvest with some of our green beans and our green stalk, which are still looking great. I've actually started another set of green beans in the front of our property. We'll see how the sunlight out there impacts them, but these have been growing for so long now that I thought, hey, it'd be a great idea to continue this. And we actually have a different variety I'll show you once they start flowering, but it's a red bush bean. It should be really nice. Now, our trip that we took to the West Coast was a backpacking trip. And if you're looking for a way to do something enjoyable that doesn't cost a lot of money, but is going to create memories, backpacking is a great way to go. We flew out to Washington State, and it was pretty inexpensive because we didn't have to pay for any check bags or anything like that. And from there, we made the decision to Amtrak all the way from Seattle, Washington, down to San Diego, California. And we did that over the span of 10 days. Amtrak's a really inexpensive way to travel, and it's a great way to see the countryside, to see the views, and it's pretty comfortable as well, I would argue. All right, let's move over here and check out our cherry tomatoes while I'm talking. I'll tell you what, too, by taking the Amtrak, you can get off at different stops along the way, and that's just what we did. So while we were in Seattle, we saw a lot of the sights there, including the zoo in Seattle. And it seems to me like going to zoos must be one of our family's things to do, one of the things that we enjoy as a group here. And it's so interesting because as we're going to these zoos, we're on the lookout now for places like the garden that we saw when we were in Syracuse at the zoo there. But it's also about that building together of family time. You know, gardening has that family element, or it can have that family aspect, because you can all get out and get work done while you're in the garden too. But it's not always the case that everybody is going to be able to be there at the same time. For a trip like this, well, That's that's family time guaranteed. All right, I'm gonna take a break from harvesting those tomatoes and harvest some of our fall-bearing red raspberries. These are our heritage red raspberries, and this is what we talked about in the video we did earlier this season, where we talked about care and maintenance for your summer bearing versus your fall bearing, because now we have that late season, smaller late season crop here with our fall bearing red raspberries, and these are so tasty. One of the benefits of fall bearing raspberries, you get that second harvest. Now we've got eggplant all over the place here for us to harvest, a lot of different varieties, so I'm gonna hop in here and grab some of our eggplant out of the different spaces. We traveled from Seattle down to Portland, and from Portland to Sacramento, and from Sacramento to Los Angeles, and I learned something very valuable about myself when we traveled to Los Angeles, and that is that I don't really love that kind of big city. That's not the space for me. It's a bit overwhelming. But we left there after a day and we traveled to San Diego. And San Diego is a place that I can get behind in terms of the beauty, and that's also where we saw another zoo in Balboa Park, which is the San Diego Zoo. And I guess San Diego Zoo has a reputation for being one of the nicest zoos in the US, and I think that reputation is justified. All right, some of our peppers are definitely ready to be harvested. I love seeing the color changes in these peppers. I would say that the peppers this year are all from our previous year's growth. So it was just seeds that we harvested and we're continuing to grow. In fact, there isn't a single plant here besides the potatoes and sweet potatoes that we didn't start from seed and that we aren't growing from previous year's crops. So not spending any money on that this season is a definite bonus, definite benefit. Now, one of the things we saw at the San Diego Zoo that I thought was really interesting is they're growing a lot of bamboo there. And the bamboo that they're growing is, for the most part, now we saw plenty that was grown in ground as well, but for the most part grown in raised beds. So they have raised bed bamboo growing all around the areas where they're focused, places where the animals would have had bamboo growing around them. I think the rationale behind the raised beds probably has something to do with how invasive bamboo can be, how difficult it can be to control. But that's just my speculation, I don't know. It was really interesting to see. I mean, you've got zoos growing in raised beds. Now we've seen that multiple times. I didn't find anybody to ask if they fed any of the bamboo from, that they were growing there, to their animals. I have never, nor will I ever, harvest garden candy without sampling some. And that's why. Now we have a bunch of bigger tomatoes as well. Some of them are definitely overripe because they've stayed on the vine too long, so they've split. But there are also quite a few that are in pretty good shape that we can get in here and harvest as well. As much as it was a challenge for us to be away for those 10 days from the garden, and then the previous vacation we took as well, as much as those were challenges and they made a bit of stress, because again, I think while we were gone during that 10 days, it rained once. And we came back and not everything was in the best shape imaginable. I still think we're growing enough that we're going to be just fine. We're still going to have plenty of produce. But as I look at this, I'm saying to myself, I will always remember that time with my family. It's an opportunity that I have, particularly because I'm a teacher. I have the opportunity to take a vacation like that. And even though some of the plants struggled some, the garden really did take care of itself. And when we came back, there was still that good production. So to us, I would say when I mention sometimes you have to take a break from the garden, what I mean is that there are a lot of things in life that are important in addition to the garden. And I think that this summer really bore that out for us. Now I'm taking a little break from the heat. It is so hot out here today, but I am underneath my grapes, and I wish you could smell this with me. If you've ever grown grapes before, you probably know what I'm talking about. But these grapes are ready to be harvested, and these are Concord grapes. These are so good. One of my absolute favorite grapes. What's your favorite variety of grape? Take a look at these. Well, I'm sure there's plenty more out here to harvest, and I'm sure that this is probably a very different kind of harvest video for many of you, certainly than any that we've done in terms of what we've been talking about here. But I want to encourage you not to get bogged down, but to enjoy your garden, and don't let your garden stop you from doing other things that you're also going to enjoy, other things that are also important for you and for your family. If you can do that, I think you'll be even happier with your garden, because it won't feel like a task or a drudgery that you have to always be there, always maintaining, and can't do anything else, because that is going to be problematic in the long term for how you feel about your garden and that garden experience. And we want it to be, as often as possible, a positive one. Well, hey, if you enjoyed today's harvest video and our conversation, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.